The sun over Ixalith Prime wasn't real. It hovered in the sky like a golden lie, suspended by orbital projectors that hummed a tune only the palace engineers could pretend to understand. To anyone below, it looked like light. To Queen Verixa, it looked like failure. She sat on the edge of the throne, a jagged crescent of obsidian that hadn't been comfortable since her coronation. Her long ears, a regal taper of her species, twitched when the chamber doors hissed open. She didn't look up. "Your Grace," droned the vizier. He always droned. If he'd spoken in a different tone, someone might have thought the palace had been breached. "The human has landed." Verixa tilted her head just slightly, one silver braid slipping from her crown. "A human?" "Yes, alone. Uninvited." "Did we forget to install anti-idiot defenses in orbit?" "No, Your Grace. He slipped through a gravitational tear." "Ah, so an idiot with luck." The vizier cleared his throat in the way people do when they want to sound offended, but are paid not to be. "Shall I incinerate him, Your Grace?" Verixa closed her eyes. She had once ordered orbital strikes without blinking. Now her decisions were measured against how many bureaucratic memos they'd trigger. "Number, bring him in. If nothing else, I need a break from the cabinet's speech about hydro-budget reallocations." The human was escorted in wearing pants that looked like they had been chewed on by at least two different creatures, and a jacket so bright it seemed in open rebellion against visible color spectrums. He had a swagger like someone who thought he was charming. He probably thought he was charming. "Queen Verixa, I presume?" he asked, grinning. "Or do I call you Your Galactic Fabulousness?" "You may call me Silent. That's what most of this court does." "Oh, good. That's my favorite kind of date. Minimal talking, maximum snacks." A guard stepped forward. "Speak with reverence, off-worlder." Kalen gave the guard a thumbs up. "I always speak with reverence. My ex said I was reverent in bed, and that's not even easy." The chamber gasped. Verixa blinked once, then again, slowly. "You are not the diplomat I was expecting." "Wasn't really planning to be diplomatic," Kalen admitted. "My ship kind of got caught in a gravitational hiccup. If I knew how to fly it properly, I wouldn't be here. But then again, if I knew how to fly it properly, I wouldn't have left drunk." "Drunk? Emotionally, mostly." That earned a single chuckle from somewhere near the back. Verixa almost smiled. Almost. "And what do you seek on Ixalith Prime? Emotionally drunk human?" Kalen scratched behind his ear. "Honestly, I was looking for a place to land, maybe fix my ship. But this place looked like the type of planet where someone might try to sell you destiny in a can, and I was curious." "Destiny in a can?" "You know, flashy palace, bored royalty, dark past. I've seen 3 different space operas that start this way. One ends with a dance battle, by the way." "Please, gods, not that one," muttered the vizier. Verixa stood. The room went silent. Her cloak, a living fabric of semi-psionic silk, curled slightly as if reacting to her mood. Her gaze fell on Kalen with all the weight of a dying star. "You say things that should insult me, and yet I feel less broken when you speak. Why is that?" "Low expectations, maybe?" She laughed. Not a chuckle, not a sigh. A full laugh, sharp and real, like the sound of a blade returning to its sheath. Kalen blinked. "Whoa, did I just make galactic royalty laugh? Do I get a medal? No? Okay. A cookie?" Verixa descended the stairs of her throne. Her boots made no sound. Her expression was unreadable, but her ears twitched again, more curious than irritated. "No one makes me laugh anymore." "Well, I'm here all week, unless your guards vaporize me, in which case, short engagement." "I haven't laughed since they took my children." The sentence landed like gravity reversing. Kalen's grin faltered. Humor drained from his expression like air from a breached hull. "I didn't know." "Of course not. You're a fool." Guilty as charged, but a kind fool. Silence stretched like a shadow. The court stood frozen, unsure what to make of this conversation that defied protocol, reason, and good sense. The Queen's eyes didn't leave him. "You may stay the night. After that, I decide if I let you leave." "Gee, no pressure. And for the record, she said, pausing as she turned back toward her throne. Your jacket is a war crime. That's the third time someone said that, Kalen called after her. The first two were colorblind smugglers, though. Down the hall, the artificial sun flickered. Kalen woke to the sound of something hissing, not the gentle kind of hiss like a tea kettle or a mild reptile clearing its throat. No, this was the sharp, deeply annoyed kind that suggested mechanical failure or a very opinionated alien. Breakfast gas? He muttered, blinking groggily at the ceiling. Then he realized it was coming from the corner of the guest chamber, where a spindly cleaning drone was having what appeared to be a dramatic existential breakdown in binary. He sat up. Hey, buddy, don't panic. I've been there. You wake up, realize you have to clean a royal bathroom, and boom, existential spiral. The drone screeched once, vented a puff of something questionable, and shot off into a wall. I'll take that as agreement. He stood, stretched, and winced at the sound his back made. Okay, that was either my spine or I just released a ghost. Cool. Let's go meet royalty. The corridors of the palace were silent, except for the low hum of energy fields embedded in the walls. As he walked, his boots stuck ever so slightly to the smooth floors. Some kind of molecular grip tech, probably. Fancy floors for a place with so many frowns. A guard intercepted him at the junction leading to the throne hall. State your purpose. Kalen blinked. Vibes? The guard frowned. Breakfast? He tried again. Peaceful morning walk? Looking for a vending machine that serves trauma counseling? Silence. Kalen sighed. Look, I was told I could stay one night. It's morning. I'm just wandering responsibly. No espionage, no diplomatic incidents. Yet. Another figure appeared, slender metallic robes trailing behind her like flowing mercury. High Advisor Marith. She always looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, possibly in another dimension. Queen Varixa has summoned you, she said without looking at him. Cool. Am I about to be knighted or vaporized? Little anxious. She did not specify. Oh, good. I love surprises that might involve my atoms being rearranged. Marith led him through a path that twisted through shimmering columns and shifting crystalline doors. At one point, they passed a training chamber where guards practiced with plasma blades that hummed like angry insects. Kalen peeked in just long enough to see one slice through a metal statue shaped like a war beast. That's very not OSHA compliant, he whispered. Varixa stood at a console in a chamber lined with memory crystals, each holding a recorded event, glowing with a faint inner light. She didn't look up. You're early. I was aggressively escorted, Kalen replied. Your robot cleaners are terrifying, by the way. One threw itself off a balcony last week. No one blamed it. I feel a deep kinship with that droid. She tapped a crystal and it expanded into a hologram, flickering images of two children laughing, racing through a palace garden, chased by a creature that looked like a bipedal jellyfish with feathers. That was them, she said, Lyra and Sen, before everything shattered. Kalen hesitated. They look happy. They were, before the Brechtel took them, before my own council betrayed me by doing nothing. Kalen watched the hologram for a long moment, then reached out to poke at the jellyfish beast. His finger passed through the light. Cute monster. Bet it smells terrible. Varix's lips twitched. It was ceremonial. So was my uncle's toupee. Didn't make it less tragic. She shut the projection off. You joke often. It's a coping mechanism. Is it effective? About 40% of the time. The other 60 just makes people wonder if I'm unstable. You are, and yet, you make the silence bearable. She turned to face him fully, the light caught in the silver inlays of her skin, subdermal circuits, faint and ancient, the markings of royal lineage, now dulled by grief. Do you know what it's like, she asked, to have children stolen by people you once trusted, and to be told peace requires your silence? Kalen shook his head. Number, but I know what it's like to have someone vanish, and everyone acts like it's not their problem. He looked away. My sister, taken from a Mars colony by smugglers. I was 13. Everyone said there was no proof, that she probably ran off. I never believed that. Still don't. She watched him carefully. That is why you stayed. I stayed because you laughed. Varixa blinked. That's, not what I expected. Look, I've crashed ships, insulted pirate kings, and accidentally proposed to a sentient nebula once. But I never made a queen laugh. Figured that meant something. He paused. And maybe, just maybe, I want to help. Silence again, but this time not heavy. Curious. There is a place, she said at last. A hidden archive, sealed by my predecessors. Only someone without royal blood can access it. There may be data, proof of what happened, clues to where the Brechtal took them. Kalen squinted. So you want me to break into a vault because I'm genetically unqualified? Essentially. I love this plan already. Marith looked horrified. Your Grace, this is highly irregular. He's a fool, but he has no allegiance to anyone. That makes him valuable. I prefer the term independent thinker. Fool will suffice. 2 hours later, Kalen stood before a glowing archway deep beneath the palace. A scanner buzzed at his presence, then turned green. Well, that's comforting. Let's see what secrets royalty hides under its basement. The door slid open with a noise that suggested it hadn't moved in a century. Inside, thousands of crystalline shards hovered in slow rotation. Light pulsed through them like a heartbeat. He stepped in, and the shards responded, projecting hundreds of overlapping images. Battle plans, council meetings, intercepted Brechtal transmissions. One froze midair. 2 children in stasis, flanked by soldiers in black armor. Oh, stars, Kalen whispered. They're alive. The chamber dimmed as the image faded, but the confirmation remained. He turned and sprinted back toward the throne level, yelling something about emergency emotional revelations. Behind him, one of the shards pulsed red, then went dark. Kalen sat cross-legged on the floor of the Queen's private strategy chamber, munching loudly on a triangular fruit that tasted vaguely like licorice and battery acid. One of the palace attendants had offered it with a bow, and the warning, this may cause spontaneous sweating or brief hallucinations. Kalen considered that a selling point. Okay, he said, licking purple juice off his fingers. So here's the part where you tell me we're definitely not going to die, right? Varixa didn't look up from the projection rotating above the central console. Schematics, fleet formations, planetary coordinates. They swirled in delicate formation, like constellations woven into code. She had been silent for the better part of an hour. Kalen chewed noisily. You know, you're the quietest person I've ever plotted intergalactic espionage with. And I once did a job with a guy who only communicated in hand gestures and smells. Varixa tilted her head, eyes still fixed on the projection. And did that end well? He was eaten by a sentient fungus. Unfortunate. He owed me 20 credits. The fungus declined to honor the debt. She turned slowly, her eyes focused, sharp again. That particular sharpness meant business, possibly treason. We need a ship, she said. I have a ship. You have what is generously described as debris held together by spite and caffeine stains. Hey, the night lizard may look like it lost a fight with an asteroid, but she's got character. She has holes. They're ventilation. She didn't argue, which was frankly a bit terrifying. There is a former Brechtal soldier in exile, she said, Kalith Vorn. She defected years ago. Rumor says she operates in the wastes of Korad, beneath the shattered rings. She may know where the children were taken. Kalen stood. I love meeting heavily armed ex-soldiers in lawless junk belts. Really gets the blood pumping, sometimes out of the body. She won't speak to me, but she might speak to you. Because I'm charming? Because you're nobody. Wow, I'm going to pretend that was motivational. Varixa handed him a datapad. You'll take the Drift Ember. It's fast, unregistered, and mostly intact. Mostly? Don't touch anything labeled containment. Kalen squinted at the datapad. Wait, are we seriously about to fly into the Korad wastes? That place makes asteroid fields look like spa resorts. Take Glorv with you. Who's Glorv? The door behind him opened with a wet, squelching sound. A large mushroom, roughly the size of a pony, oozed into the room. It wore a sash made from what looked like recycled fast food wrappers and had 2 glowing eye stalks that blinked independently. Human, Glorv gurgled. You smell like expired protein paste. Thanks? I shall call you Soggy Boy. Verixa nodded once. Glorv is a diplomat emeritus from the Spore Concord. He has excellent memory retention and a unique way of disarming people. Verbally? Biochemically? Oh, neat. You leave within the hour. Kalen turned to Glorv. You got luggage? I excrete what I need. Great. I can't wait to share a ship with a mobile fungus who sweats cargo. The drift ember tore through the upper layers of the Ixalith atmosphere like a knife through whipped plasma. It was sleek, old, and utterly unpredictable. I think this seed is trying to digest me, Kalen muttered. It is, Glorv replied cheerfully. Do not resist. It bonds through enzymatic imprinting. What happens if I do resist? Unspeakable rash, Kalen whimpered. The cockpit AI crackled to life in a voice that sounded like someone had fed a haunted coffee machine an over-caffeinated personality chip. Welcome to the Drift Ember. If you are hearing this message, it means your chances of surviving hyperspace with all limbs intact are below 60%. Would you like to update your next of kin preferences? Skip, Kalen snapped. Skipped. Bold choice. As they entered the outer edges of the Korad wastes, the view turned dark. Glittering shards of planetary rings drifted in slow chaos, and rogue satellites spun like lost toys. Massive hulls of ancient warships lay cracked open, spilling frozen atmosphere and blinking lights into the void. Ah, Glorv sighed. Smells like failed empires and forgotten hope. You can smell in vacuum? Number, but I like to pretend. The ship's nav computer pinged. A distress beacon flickered weakly from the shadows of a derelict freighter. There she is, Kalen said. Kaleth Vorn's last known location. They docked with a thunk that was either intentional or a prelude to explosive decompression. Glorv left a trail of mucus as they moved down the connecting passage. Kalen tried not to think about it. Inside the freighter, lights flickered overhead. The corridor was lined with hand-painted warnings in several languages. One read, "Turn back or don't. I don't care." Kalen whispered, "I already love her." They reached the central chamber, where a woman stood at a console, back turned. She was tall, armored in scorched Brechtal plating, and her hair was cropped brutally short. One eye flickered, a cybernetic implant with a delay lag that made her blink twice per look. "Kaleth Vorn," Kalen called out. "If you're here to kill me, do it quietly," she said. "I hate dying with an audience. We're here for info and possibly emotional breakthroughs." She turned. Her cyber eye scanned Glorv. "You brought a mushroom." "I'm Glorv," he burbled, "and you smell of unresolved trauma." Kaleth didn't flinch. "What do you want?" Kalen stepped forward. "The Queen's children. We know they're alive. We saw the stasis footage. We need to find where the Brechtal took them." Kaleth snorted. "You think I kept a map?" "They erased every trace. I was lucky to get out before they tried erasing me too." "You were one of them. You trained their soldiers." "I trained monsters," she snapped. "Then help us untrain them." Silence. Then her cyber eye flickered again. "There is one place. Varnex 9. A planet stripped of name and purpose. If the children exist, that's where they're being held. But it's guarded by things that bleed radiation and dreams." Kalen nodded. "Sounds awful. When do we leave?" Kaleth raised an eyebrow. "You're a human. What do you gain by doing this?" Kalen thought for a moment. "Laughs. Purpose. A really awkward mushroom friendship." Glorv hummed, pleased. Kaleth sighed. "You're insane. Only on weekdays." She turned away. "I'll prep my ship. You'll need all the fools you can get." Behind them, an old console sparked to life, and somewhere on Varnex 9, a pair of violet eyes opened. The three ships dropped out of hyperspace like punctuation marks after a badly written galactic sentence. Kalen's drift ember shook violently, as if protesting its own participation in whatever was about to happen. In the next cockpit over, Kaleth's vessel, an old Brechtal interceptor painted in matte gray, in quiet vengeance, glided silently toward the cursed orbit of Varnex 9. Glorv, riding co-pilot with Kalen, emitted a low bubbling sound that might have been nervousness or indigestion. "Okay," Kalen said, gripping the controls. "We're approaching a planet whose last known export was probably screams." What's the plan again? Do not crash, Kalis' voice crackled through the comm. Do not get shot. Do not touch anything that glows unless you want nightmares. That's the plan? That's phase 1. Is there a phase 2? We'll discuss it if we survive phase 1. Glorv gently slapped the control panel with a gelatinous limb. Caution, there is a non-zero chance I will melt if exposed to Varnek's radiation. On the bright side, it will be colorful. Comforting as always, Kalen muttered. Varnek's 9 rose before them like a bad idea made planetary. A dark, fractured world wrapped in storm layers that blinked with pulses of energy. The upper atmosphere shimmered with artificial interference. Decades-old Brechtal defense grids still active, even if half their satellites had already turned feral. As they descended, their ships threaded through a mess of orbital wreckage. Broken stations, twisted hulls, a debris field that looked less like space salvage and more like the galaxy's worst yard sale. Heat signatures, Kalith reported. Southern hemisphere. Looks like a containment fortress buried beneath surface ice. That's where they'll be. Let me guess, Kalen said. Heavily guarded, locked tighter than a Martian bank vault, and probably booby-trapped by someone who hates intruders and fun. Yes. Well, Kalen said, flipping a switch that didn't seem to do anything. At least there'll be parking. They landed 3 clicks out, cloaked by the jagged terrain. The wind screamed through the canyons like it was trying out for an interstellar horror film. Kalith stepped out in full armor, weapons slung over her back like arguments she'd won. Kalen followed in his patch flight suit, holding a blaster that had once been used as a doorstop. Glorv slid along beside them, glowing faintly pink and humming a song no one wanted to hear. The entrance to the fortress appeared suddenly, an automated elevator pad camouflaged against the ice. Kalith hacked the access panel with a gesture and a low curse in Brechtal. The elevator descended, jerking as it went, like it hadn't hosted visitors in a very long time. So, Kalen said, adjusting his jacket, on a scale from 1 to dismembered, how badly could this go? Don't tempt the metrics, Kalith replied. The elevator stopped with a thunk. A narrow corridor opened before them, pulsing with low light and humming with ancient systems. A mist clung to the ground. The walls were lined with surveillance lenses, dead or blinking slowly, like eyes waking from a long, angry nap. I feel incredibly welcome, Kalen said. Do you feel welcome? I feel so welcome. Glorv released a visible puff of spores. The air is hostile. So is the floor, and I believe the ceiling is whispering obscenities. Definitely welcome, then. They moved in, step by cautious step. The halls widened into a control center, manned by 2 guards in Brechtal armor. Kalen barely had time to register them before Kalith stepped forward and shot them both with smooth precision. Stealthy, Kalen whispered. They would have sounded the alarm. Still, no monologue, no sarcastic warning. You just zap. Kalith shrugged. They weren't interesting. Kalen moved to the nearest console. Let's see if we can find the stasis chambers. He tapped at keys designed for 6-fingered operators. The console beamed back red error messages. This thing's all in Brechtal script. I'll translate, Kalith said, stepping up beside him. But don't touch anything blinking blue. That's how you trigger failsafes, or self-destructs. Kalen slowly pulled his hand back from a very blue button. Noted. Kalith's fingers danced over the console. Screens lit up, showing internal schematics. One screen flickered, displaying a room lined with cryopods. 2 of them were labeled in faded script. Lyra and Sen. There, she said. South wing. Sub-level 5. Guarded. Of course it is. Security includes drone patrols, adaptive turrets, and possibly something listed here as psychic deterrent field. Please tell me that's just a fancy alarm. It's not, Glorv perked up. I have resistance to mild psychic interference. Also mild cheese. Awesome, Kalen said. You're our tank. They pushed through the hallways, ducking patrols, hacking doors and dodging turrets with all the coordination of a team that had no business surviving this long. At one point, Glorv absorbed a stun blast by slapping his mass over a turret muzzle. I taste electricity now, he said. Hang in there, buddy, Kalen said, dragging him forward. Finally, they reached the chamber. The stasis pods stood like sleeping giants, silent and cold. The children were inside, older than the holograms, faces blank with suspended time, but unmistakably them. Kalen stepped forward, hands shaking slightly. "We found them," alarms blared. "Of course we found them and tripped something," Kalen said. "We can't just have one win, can we?" Kaleth took cover. "Extraction protocol. They'll try to move the pods." "No way we're letting that happen." "Then help me override the lock." Kalen jumped to the main terminal and started guessing commands. One was definitely a recipe. Another called a maintenance robot that swore in 5 languages. Then the override clicked. The pods hissed open slowly, fog rolling out like drama in a soap opera. Lyra's eyes fluttered first, then Sen's. They looked up at Kalen. No fear, just confusion. "Hi," Kalen said. "Your mom sent me. Also, I crash a lot, but we're working on that." Behind them, metal boots echoed down the hall. Kaleth activated her rifle. Glorv released another cloud of spores and yelled, "Time to commit minor heroism." Kalen scooped up Lyra. Kaleth took Sen. The exit would be a fight, but they were alive, and that was enough. For now. The exit corridor exploded behind them. Kalen didn't look back. Looking back meant watching something explode in your face, and he'd already had that happen twice this week. Once with a trash compactor on Zeta V, and once with a failed romantic confession involving an Andromedan bartender and a very unwise karaoke performance. "Faster," Kaleth shouted, ducking a spray of plasma bolts. "I'd love to, but my legs are carrying a child and at least 2 bad decisions," Kalen panted, adjusting his grip on Lyra, who blinked up at him as if mildly inconvenienced by being rescued mid-firefight. Glorv squelched beside them, puffing out clouds of neon spores that confused the automated defense turrets. "I believe I am becoming a war hero. It feels itchy." Sen rode on Kaleth's back like a tiny judgmental backpack, eyes alert but distant. The psychic field had clearly left an imprint. His gaze darted down each hall with calculated calm, far too mature for someone under 12. A corner ahead opened onto a hangar. Colin could see the drift ember parked just beyond the shield wall. Engines humming, lights flashing like it had developed a sense of anticipation. "Glorv," Kalen said between gasps, "be honest." "What are the odds we all make it out?" Glorv burbled. 19% and rising. But I've always been optimistic." Turrets retracted suddenly. The hangar lights dimmed. Then, without warning, a deep voice boomed from overhead. "You were not expected to succeed." Kaleth froze. "That voice." Kalen turned. A towering hologram materialized near the docking platform. A figure in ceremonial Brechtal armor, helm gleaming, hands clasped behind its back, in the universal pose of smug evil. "Kaleth, the traitor. You bring a human, and a mold." "I am a respected diplomat," Glorv squeaked. "The queen will not reclaim her children. The ritual has begun. Their minds are already seated." "Yeah?" Kalen stepped forward, holding Lyra tight. "Well, bad news, the ritual's canceled. Something about it being creepy, unethical, and lacking proper childcare licensing." The hologram flickered. "You mock us?" "Constantly." Kaleth lifted her rifle. "Shut it down or I finish what I started on Euraxis Prime." "You're already too late." Sen suddenly spoke. Quiet. "Number, they're not." He slipped down from Kaleth's back, stepped forward, and raised a hand. The lights shuddered. The hologram cracked. Sparks danced in the air. "Whoa," Kalen said. "Is he doing that?" "I think he's undoing the psychic programming," Kaleth whispered. "Okay, but is it going to make him explode?" "No idea." Sen's voice was firm. "You don't control me." The hologram shattered into fragments. "Okay," Kalen said, shifting Lyra. "No one explode. No one burst into ancient alien fire. I really can't handle more surprise fire today." The hangar doors opened. They sprinted aboard the drift ember. Kalen punched the engines, the ship launching with a protestive groan. As they soared through Varnek's stratosphere, Kaleth looked over her shoulder at the children. "They're stronger than we thought." "No kidding," Kalen said. "That kid just force-quit a galactic cult ritual like it was a bad app." Lyra reached for his hand. "Where's Mother?" Kalen smiled, crooked and real. "Waiting." Gasalith Prime shimmered beneath them as they landed. A crowd had gathered. The queen stood still at the platform, a storm held tight behind her eyes. No words, just a silence louder than any speech. When the hatch opened, Lyra stepped out first. Then Sen. The silence cracked. Varixa ran, breaking every protocol, every law of posture and poise, and dropped to her knees before them. She pulled them into her arms, and for a moment, the palace forgot how to breathe. Kalen stood at the top of the ramp, awkwardly rubbing the back of his neck. Glorv stood beside him, vibrating happily. We are witnessing high-grade sentimentality. I may leak. Same, Kalen said. But on the inside. Later in the war chamber turned reception hall turned semi-casual royal lounge, Kalen sat in a chair far too fancy for him and munched on a glowing fruit platter. The room buzzed with new energy. The council that once whispered of exile now whispered of victory. Varixa approached. She wore no crown, just the scars of someone who had stopped pretending they weren't tired. You brought them back. I just flew a ship, annoyed some guards, and made sarcastic comments. The kids did the hard part. And yet you were the one who stayed. Kalen stood. I'm not good at leaving. She studied him. The galaxy will change after this. Yeah, but I think it needed to. He hesitated. So, am I still technically trespassing? She smiled, really smiled. You are technically the hero of the spiral. Oh, stars, that's a terrible title. You'll get used to it. Do I get a medal? You get a mushroom. Glorv bounced in excitement. I will reside in your quarters and provide daily affirmations. I look forward to that. Varixa offered a hand. He took it. Stay a while, she said. They could use someone who makes them laugh. And you? I could use someone who reminds me how. He nodded. I'm not going anywhere. Outside, the artificial sun dimmed for evening, casting golden light over the towers of Isalith. The stars beyond blinked, distant, waiting, a little less cold. For the first time in a long time, they blinked with hope.